Family, when God places his hand of protection on a woman's life, no weapon formed against her shall prosper. When his covering surrounds her, the schemes of evil people lose their power. The whispers of the enemy fall flat, and the snares set for her turn into stepping stones for her destiny. A woman under divine protection doesn't walk in fear, because she knows that heaven's armies are already assigned to her battles. She stands tall, not because of her own strength, but because of the God who fights for her. Let me show you the signs of that kind of protection so you can recognize it and walk in it with boldness. The first sign is peace in the middle of chaos. Evil people thrive on stirring up confusion, but when she's under God's shield, there's a calmness that refuses to be shaken. Her spirit remains steady when storms rage, because her peace doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from the Lord who is her anchor. People around her may panic, but she's the one speaking life, holding hope, and walking in confidence that God has already written the ending. The second sign is discernment. She has eyes that see beyond the surface. While others get caught up in smooth words and false smiles, she can sense the motives of a heart. God sharpens her spirit so she can recognize who's for her and who's against her. This isn't natural wisdom, it's supernatural discernment. And because of it, she doesn't get trapped in the nets of manipulators, she doesn't fall for the games of deceivers, and she doesn't allow evil to take root in her circle. The third sign is favor that can't be explained. Doors open for her that no one else can shut. Opportunities come her way even when people try to block them. Evil people may rise up to discredit her, to tarnish her name, or to hold her back, but somehow she still rises. Because when God decides to promote you, no enemy on earth can demote you. Favor is not fair, and when God is the one protecting her, his favor surrounds her like a shield. The fourth sign is strength in weakness. She may feel the pressure, she may walk through fire, she may cry tears in secret, but when she stands strong. Evil people can't understand it. They expected her to break, but she keeps bouncing back. They thought she was finished, but she shows up stronger than before. Because her strength isn't her own, it's drawn from the one who renews her daily. Her weakness becomes the platform for God's power, and that power keeps her unshakable. The fifth sign is elevation above her enemies. God doesn't just protect her from the schemes of evil people. He positions her where their schemes can't reach. She finds herself sitting in places she never thought possible, achieving victories they said she couldn't win, and rising to levels they never expected her to see. Her life becomes the evidence that God prepares a table for her right in the presence of those who opposed her. They watch, but they cannot touch because the elevation came from heaven. The sixth sign is endurance through trials. Protection doesn't mean she won't face hardship, but when she's covered, every trial becomes training ground, every test becomes testimony, and every obstacle becomes a lesson in resilience. Evil people may try to wear her down, but God gives her a spirit that refuses to quit. She endures the process, and through endurance, she develops a faith so strong that nothing can shake it. The seventh sign is joy that cannot be stolen. Evil people try to rob her of laughter, to dim her light, to burden her heart. But she carries a joy rooted deeper than circumstances, a joy born from knowing she is loved by God, chosen by Him, and kept by Him. It's a joy that shines even in dark seasons, a joy that confuses her enemies, because they can't understand how she can still smile, still worship, still move forward with confidence after everything she's faced. These are the signs, and when you see them, you know she is not walking alone. She is guarded, she is guided, she is girded with power from on high. Evil people may plot, but they cannot prevail. Weapons may form, but they will not prosper. And when the story is told, her life will testify of the God who protects his daughters from every scheme of darkness. Peace in the middle of chaos is one of the clearest signs that a woman is under the protection of God. Because peace is not something that can be manufactured by human effort. It cannot be bought in a store. It cannot be found in a self-help book. And it cannot be sustained by positive thinking alone. Peace, the kind that passes all understanding, comes from God himself. And when his covering rests on a woman's life, even in the midst of turmoil, her spirit remains calm. Evil people thrive on stirring confusion, on creating drama, and on shaking the ground under others' feet. Their weapon is disruption. They love to unsettle others with gossip, lies, betrayal, and manipulation. But when a woman is protected by God, she has an inner stillness that evil cannot touch. She is not naive. She sees the chaos, she hears the noise, and she feels the tension, but it does not define her. Her heart is anchored to something stronger than her surroundings. She understands that her stability is not determined by who is against her, but by who is for her. And when God is for her, no storm, no slander, no attack has the power to dismantle her spirit. Think of how water behaves in a storm. On the surface, waves are violent, winds are howling, and everything looks unstable. But deep beneath the surface, the water is still. That's what happens to a woman covered by God. On the outside, her world may look like it's falling apart, people turning against her, unexpected losses, attacks from those who envy her. But deep in her spirit, she is calm because she knows who holds her life together. She refuses to let panic guide her decisions. She refuses to let fear dictate her steps. Instead, she leans into the promises of God. And those promises whisper to her heart, "Be still and know that I am God." It is this inner peace that makes her stand out. People around her wonder how she can stay so composed when others would have lost their mind. That peace becomes her testimony. Evil people cannot stand peace because peace exposes their chaos. When someone tries to intimidate you and you respond with calm confidence, it dismantles their control. When someone tries to stir up anger in you and you remain steady, it frustrates their plan. Evil feeds on reaction, but when there is no reaction, the weapon loses its power. A woman under divine protection doesn't have to fight every battle with words or arguments because her peace speaks louder than her defense. Her calmness in conflict is proof that she knows who her protector is. She doesn't need to get loud because heaven is already speaking on her behalf. That doesn't mean she never feels pressure. She may feel moments of fear, moments of doubt, moments of heaviness, but she refuses to let those feelings rule her. She brings them to God in prayer, and in exchange, He gives her peace that steadies her steps. This peace is not passive, it is powerful. It doesn't make her weak, it makes her unshakable. Evil people expect her to crumble, to retaliate, to break down under the weight of pressure. But instead, she stands, she keeps showing up, she keeps moving forward, and she keeps shining. That's why the enemy cannot figure her out, because her response is not natural, it's supernatural. And that supernatural calmness is a shield that protects her from the arrows of chaos. This peace also gives her wisdom. When the atmosphere is noisy, decisions made in panic lead to regret, but a peaceful heart has clarity. She doesn't rush into traps, she doesn't fall for manipulative schemes. And she doesn't get tangled in unnecessary conflicts. Her peace gives her patience to wait on God's timing. And while others are scrambling, she is standing, discerning, and preparing for the breakthrough God is orchestrating. Evil people may try to rush her, pressure her, or corner her, but she remains unmoved because her spirit is anchored in trust. Peace also flows out of her to others. When she walks into a room, the atmosphere shifts. When she speaks, her words bring calm to those who are anxious. When she prays, she ushers in comfort for those in pain. People begin to notice that being around her makes them feel steady. That's not her personality alone. That's the evidence of God's protection flowing through her. Evil people cannot stand that kind of influence because it breaks the cycle of fear they try to spread. But no matter how much they try, they cannot steal what God has planted in her spirit. Her peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God. It doesn't mean the storms stop. It means she knows who commands the storm. It doesn't mean the attacks end. It means she knows who defends her in battle. And because of that, she refuses to let her heart be troubled. She lives by faith, not by sight. She walks with assurance, not anxiety. And her life becomes a living declaration that when God is your protector, you can face any chaos and still remain calm. Discernment is a powerful sign that a woman is protected by God because it allows her to see beyond the surface and recognize the hidden intentions of those around her. This discernment is not something that comes from education, experience, or natural intelligence alone. It is a gift from God that sharpens her spirit and sets her apart. When she walks in God's protection, her senses are heightened, not in a fearful, suspicious way, but in a spiritually attuned way that enables her to perceive truth amidst deception. She can sense the difference between genuine kindness and manipulative flattery, between true counsel and deceitful guidance. While others may be caught off guard by the schemes of evil people, she is equipped to navigate treacherous waters with clarity and confidence. Evil people often operate under disguise. They wear smiles that hide malice, speak words that conceal envy, and offer help that carries hidden agendas. Many fall into their traps simply because they fail to recognize the warning signs. But the woman under God's protection sees clearly. Her discernment acts as a spiritual radar that detects danger long before it manifests. She does not have to experience betrayal multiple times to learn the lesson. She recognizes warning signals early and responds with wisdom. This is the kind of supernatural insight that keeps her from falling into snares and ensures she moves with the guidance of the Almighty rather than the influence of deceitful hearts. This discernment is both protective and proactive. It shields her from those who would exploit, manipulate, or harm her, while also guiding her toward those who genuinely support and uplift her. She can distinguish between relationships that build her up and those that drain her. She can see past the superficial charm of people with ulterior motives, understanding that not everyone who smiles at her has her best interest at heart. Because of this, she avoids unnecessary conflicts, protects her reputation, and preserves her peace. Her life becomes a testament to the fact that God's children are not left defenseless. They are equipped with spiritual wisdom that the world cannot counterfeit. The discernment of a God-protected woman also affects her decisions. In business, family, friendships, and even casual encounters, she makes choices with precision because she sees beyond appearances. She evaluates motives, considers consequences, and trusts in God's guidance to lead her down the path of safety and blessing. Evil people may try to manipulate her circumstances, distort the truth, or pressure her into decisions, but her discernment allows her to stay rooted in God's perspective. She does not react impulsively, she responds prayerfully. She does not follow the crowd, she follows God. Her spiritual insight gives her confidence, and her confidence acts as a barrier that evil cannot penetrate. Discernment also brings clarity in the midst of confusion. Life is full of situations that appear overwhelming or deceptive, and the enemy often seeks to create uncertainty to destabilize her. But she is able to sift through the noise and identify what is real and what is false. She can recognize patterns of manipulation, detect dishonesty in relationships, and understand the intentions of those who may seem friendly but harbor hidden agendas. This clarity is a form of divine protection because it prevents her from being led astray. While others stumble, she walks in the light of understanding that comes from God. Moreover, discernment is closely tied to humility and dependence on God. It is not a tool for pride or judgment. It is a gift for godly living. A woman who is protected cultivates her relationship with God, spends time in prayer, studies His Word, and listens for His voice. It is through this connection that her discernment is honed. She does not rely solely on instinct or intuition because human perception is limited. Instead, she relies on the Spirit of God, who reveals hidden truths and equips her with insight. This dependence ensures that her discernment is accurate and effective, not clouded by bias or emotion. Evil people often underestimate her, thinking she is naive or vulnerable. They do not realize that her discernment allows her to navigate their schemes before they can fully execute them. She can see motives, anticipate actions, and protect herself from harm. Her discernment also prevents her from being used as a pawn in someone else's plans. While they try to manipulate and control, she moves with the wisdom of God, making decisions that honor Him and safeguard her future. Her life becomes a fortress, not because of her own cunning, but because God has equipped her to perceive and respond with divine insight. Finally, discernment allows her to mentor and guide others. She becomes a source of wisdom for those around her, offering guidance, warning, and encouragement. She can help others avoid pitfalls, recognize false intentions, and make decisions that align with God's will. Her protection is not just personal, it extends to those who seek her counsel and respect her insight. The presence of discernment in her life is a living demonstration that God protects, equips, and empowers His daughters to walk securely, confidently, and faithfully even in a world filled with deceit and danger. Her discernment is a sign of God's ongoing protection because it keeps her from being a victim of manipulation and ensures that she walks in alignment with His plan. It is not accidental or coincidental. It is intentional, divine, and powerful. The woman who is guided by discernment can face life's challenges with clarity, make decisions with confidence, and move in God's purpose without being sidetracked by the schemes of evil people. This insight is one of the clearest indicators that she is shielded by God, walking not in fear but in wisdom, not in confusion but in clarity, and not in vulnerability but in strength. Favor that cannot be explained is one of the clearest indicators that a woman is under the protection of God. Favor is not merely luck or coincidence. It is not something that comes from human effort, connections, or charm alone. Favor is a supernatural hand of God that lifts her above opposition, opens doors that others cannot open, and ensures that opportunities align in her life at exactly the right time. It is the divine advantage that allows her to advance, even when circumstances seem impossible, and it serves as a sign to both the faithful and the adversaries that she is under God's protection. Favor manifests in ways that defy logic and exceed expectation. When evil people try to block her, when circumstances seem stacked against her, she finds that opportunities appear that were never visible before, people come alongside her who are unexpectedly helpful, and situations turn around in her favor. This is the unmistakable sign that God is orchestrating her steps and guarding her journey. Favor often attracts attention, both positive and negative. Evil people may notice that no matter how hard they try to hinder her, her path continues to move forward. They may set obstacles, spread rumors, or attempt to undermine her reputation, yet somehow she continues to rise. Doors open for her that no one else can unlock. Positions, opportunities, and resources are made available to her at exactly the right moment. This is not because she is better than others, but because God has placed His hand upon her life. Favor is His way of announcing that she is under divine protection, that her life is being guided, and that she is marked for success. Even her enemies cannot prevent what God has ordained, because divine favor is unstoppable. Favor also influences how others respond to her. People are naturally drawn to her, often without knowing why. Leaders, mentors, and influencers take notice of her gifts and abilities. Doors open for collaboration, and unexpected assistance appears just when she needs it. She is positioned to succeed in ways that are strategically aligned with her purpose. The beauty of divine favor is that it operates beyond merit and human expectation. Even when she faces criticism or opposition, the very same favor that raises her above obstacles protects her reputation and positions her for breakthrough. This creates a kind of momentum in her life that cannot be explained by mere effort or timing. It is supernatural intervention in motion. Favor also provides protection from hidden attacks. Evil people often scheme to sabotage progress, manipulate circumstances, or entangle her in situations that could harm her. But when God's favor rests upon her, their efforts are neutralized. Their plans may appear threatening, but they fail to succeed. Their influence is limited because God has already decreed her success and has set a hedge of protection around her life. Favor becomes a shield that moves with her, allowing her to navigate challenges safely, advance in her purpose, and demonstrate resilience even when faced with adversity. It is both offensive and defensive, creating momentum while ensuring safety. Another aspect of favor is timing. She experiences divine timing in ways that make miracles evident. Opportunities arrive at just the right moment, answers to prayers manifest precisely when needed, and breakthroughs occur in sequences that reveal God's orchestration. While others may struggle, wait, or experience delays, she moves in alignment with divine favor. Timing is crucial because it ensures that the work of her hands produces fruit, that her influence reaches the intended audience, and that her impact is maximized. This timing cannot be manufactured through human effort, and it is a direct indicator that God is orchestrating her life. Favor also impacts relationships. People she encounters often respond positively, whether in business, social interactions, or personal connections. Doors open in unlikely places, and she finds herself in the right place at the right time with the right people. Her influence grows not through manipulation, but through God's hand at work. Even her critics cannot prevent her progress because favor moves beyond human opposition. It positions her for blessing, builds her credibility, and enhances her ability to fulfill her calling. Favor is both an indicator and a vehicle of God's protection. It announces His presence in her life and ensures that she advances safely and strategically. Favor also produces confidence. When a woman experiences divine favor, she begins to trust that God is actively guiding her steps. She approaches life with assurance because she recognizes the hand of God moving in her circumstances. Even when evil people try to discourage her, block her progress, or manipulate situations, she understands that God's favor has already provided the advantage. This confidence is not arrogance. It is grounded in faith, awareness, and recognition of God's sovereignty. It allows her to move boldly, make wise decisions, and embrace opportunities without fear. In essence, favor that cannot be explained is a clear and visible sign of God's protection. It sets her apart from those who depend solely on their own strength or schemes. It protects her from opposition, positions her for success, and ensures that her steps are guided by divine wisdom. Favor demonstrates that her life is under supernatural supervision, that her purpose is secure, and that the attacks of evil people cannot prevail against her. Through favor, God shows the world that when He covers a woman's life, He ensures her protection, promotes her destiny, and elevates her beyond the reach of those who seek to harm her. Strength in weakness is a profound sign that a woman is under the protection of God because it demonstrates that her power does not originate from herself, but from the one who sustains her. When evil people attempt to attack, belittle, or discourage her, she may feel pressure, experience hardship, or encounter situations that seem overwhelming. Yet in the midst of those circumstances, she exhibits a strength that surpasses human understanding. It is a strength rooted in God's presence, a strength that emerges in times when her natural resources are depleted, and a strength that allows her to endure, persevere, and ultimately rise above the challenges she faces. This strength does not negate her humanity. She feels the weight of trials, the sting of betrayal, and the pain of adversity, but she refuses to be defined or defeated by them. Often evil people aim to exploit weakness, to identify vulnerabilities, and to manipulate situations in their favor. They may assume that pressure will break her, that opposition will wear her down, or that hardships will cause her to retreat. But God's protection turns what appears to be weakness into an arena for His power to manifest. Her apparent vulnerability becomes a canvas upon which God displays His strength, just as the Apostle Paul wrote that his weakness became the platform for God's power to rest. So too does this woman demonstrate that divine protection transforms limitations into sources of resilience. She stands firm not because of her own abilities, but because the one who guards her equips her with supernatural endurance. This strength in weakness allows her to confront adversity without succumbing to fear or despair. When evil people attempt to intimidate her, she refuses to be shaken. When situations seem impossible, she refuses to give in to hopelessness. Her strength is not reactive. It is rooted in faith and trust in God. She understands that her physical or emotional limitations do not determine the outcome of her life because God's power is made perfect in weakness. She walks with a confidence that is unshakable because it rests upon the reliability of divine protection, not the fluctuations of human circumstances. One of the most remarkable aspects of this strength is its subtlety. It is not always loud or forceful. Often it is displayed in quiet perseverance, consistent faith, and steadfast commitment to God's principles. Evil people may overlook it at first, expecting dramatic displays of defiance or confrontation. Yet her strength is revealed in her ability to endure patiently, to pray fervently, and to continue moving forward when others would have given up. It is the strength that allows her to face challenges with dignity, to maintain integrity in the face of temptation, and to remain unwavering when betrayal or disappointment arises. This quiet strength frustrates the enemy because it cannot be easily measured, manipulated, or defeated. Her strength and weakness also allows her to grow spiritually. Every trial, every opposition, and every attack becomes an opportunity for her to deepen her faith, to sharpen her character, and to draw closer to God. She does not waste energy on bitterness or retaliation. She channels her energy into prayer, discernment, and action guided by God. What the enemy intends for harm, God turns into a means of development, refinement, and preparation for her next season. Strength and weakness is thus both protective and transformative. It ensures her safety while simultaneously preparing her for greater responsibility, influence, and purpose. Evil people often underestimate the power of a woman who is strengthened in weakness. They assume that physical, financial, or emotional limitations make her vulnerable. They fail to see that her source of strength is divine and limitless. Because they judge by outward appearances, they miscalculate the resilience, wisdom, and supernatural fortitude that God provides. Their attacks are rendered ineffective because they cannot contend with the power that rests upon her. She becomes a living demonstration that human weakness does not equate to spiritual vulnerability, and that God's protection is sufficient to overcome every obstacle. This strength also has a ripple effect on those around her. People who witness her perseverance are encouraged, inspired, and emboldened. She becomes a source of hope for others who face similar challenges, showing them that it is possible to remain faithful, strong, and steady even when circumstances are overwhelming. Her endurance serves as both testimony and instruction, illustrating that divine strength is available to all who rely on God's protection. Through her example, others learn that weakness is not a reason for despair, but a platform for God's power to manifest in extraordinary ways. Furthermore, strength in weakness equips her to handle future challenges with greater wisdom and resilience. Every trial that she overcomes fortifies her spirit, owns her discernment, and deepens her trust in God. She develops a pattern of victory that cannot be disrupted by opposition. The enemy may continue to strategize, but he cannot break what God is building. Her life becomes a fortress of faith, courage, and determination because each moment of weakness has been transformed into a testimony of strength. Ultimately, strength strength in weakness is a clear sign of divine protection because it demonstrates that she is not relying on herself but on God. Her life is a living proof that challenges trials, and attacks do not dictate outcomes when the Almighty is her defender. Evil people may attempt to intimidate, manipulate, or overpower her, but her strength, rooted in God's power, ensures that she remains unshaken, steadfast, and victorious. In her apparent vulnerability, she displays the unmovable power of a God-protected life, and her strength becomes a testimony to all that when God covers a woman, no trial, no opposition, and no weapon formed against her can prevail. Elevation above her enemies is one of the most unmistakable signs that a woman is under the protection of God. Divine protection is not just about shielding her from harm. It is about positioning her in places where the attacks of evil people cannot reach her. When God elevates her, He raises her above schemes, manipulations, and plots that are designed to keep her down. This elevation is not always immediately visible, and it does not always follow the logic of the world, but it is strategically aligned with God's plan for her life. While adversaries attempt to hold her back, she finds herself moving forward, breaking through barriers, and achieving victories that were once thought impossible. This kind of elevation demonstrates that her life is under supernatural guidance and that God is actively orchestrating her path. Evil people often operate under the assumption that they can control circumstances to keep her from rising. They may attempt to sabotage her reputation, obstruct her progress, or influence others against her. They may try to create obstacles that appear insurmountable, believing that if they can create pressure, she will succumb. But divine elevation works in a way that defies their strategies. Even when the attacks seem fierce, she finds that doors open that no one else can unlock, that opportunities arrive just when she needs them, and that alliances form with people who will aid her in ways she could never have anticipated. The elevation comes from heaven, not human schemes, and it ensures that she cannot be held down by those who wish to see her fail. This elevation is both protective and promotive. It not only shields her from the influence of enemies, but it also positions her to fulfill her purpose. She finds herself in places of influence, authority, and visibility that allow her to impact others positively and advance in ways that align with God's will. While adversaries may attempt to intimidate or discredit her, they cannot reach her elevated position. They may observe from below, but they cannot touch what God has placed above them. Her life becomes a testimony to the fact that divine protection is not passive. It actively positions her for success and ensures that opposition cannot derail her destiny. Elevation also enhances her confidence and decision-making. When a woman experiences elevation above her enemies, she sees the evidence of God's hand at work in her life. She notices how obstacles she once feared are now behind her, how the resources she needed are suddenly available, and how support appears from unexpected sources. This awareness strengthens her faith and gives her courage to continue moving forward, even when opposition arises. She no longer operates from fear or insecurity. She operates from a place of assurance, knowing that her steps are guided and protected. Her elevation is both a spiritual and practical advantage, providing clarity, confidence, and resilience. Furthermore, elevation above her enemies allows her to operate with strategic foresight. From a higher vantage point, she can see the patterns and intentions of those around her more clearly. She can anticipate opposition, avoid unnecessary conflict, and make decisions that align with her purpose. This perspective gives her an edge over those who seek to hinder her. Evil people may plot in secrecy, believing their plans are hidden. But from her elevated position, she can discern their movements and navigate around their strategies. This supernatural advantage ensures that she is always one step ahead and protected from harm. Her elevation also serves as a witness to others. People notice when she rises above adversity, moves beyond limitations, and maintains her integrity despite opposition. Her success becomes a testimony that God protects, honors, and advances those who are faithful. Others who are struggling, oppressed, or targeted by evil can look to her life as evidence that divine elevation is possible. Her story encourages, strengthens, and inspires, demonstrating that protection is not just about defense, but also about advancement and empowerment. In addition, elevation above her enemies strengthens her influence. When she occupies positions of authority or prominence, she has a platform to impact lives, guide others, and implement change. This influence is protected because it originates from God. Evil people may attempt to challenge her or undermine her work, but her elevated position ensures that their efforts are limited. She can operate with freedom, effectiveness, and purpose, knowing that her position is secured by divine will. The very efforts of her adversaries often become opportunities for God to display her favor and protection, turning opposition into a testimony of elevation. Elevation also cultivates perseverance and resilience. The process of being lifted above adversaries is not always immediate or easy. Challenges may arise and pressures may persist, but her steady faith and obedience allow her to continue ascending. Each obstacle she overcomes strengthens her character, deepens her reliance on God, and reinforces her position above those who would seek to bring her down. This sustained elevation is a clear demonstration that her life is not subject to the whims of others. It is directed by the Almighty, whose protection ensures her ultimate success. Ultimately, elevation above her enemies is both a sign and a strategy of divine protection. It ensures that she can fulfill her purpose without being hindered, allows her to operate with clarity and confidence, and provides a supernatural advantage over those who seek to oppose her. The attacks of evil people may be persistent, but they are limited by the hand of God, who raises her above every scheme, obstacle, and plot. Her elevation is a living testimony that when God protects a woman, He does not merely guard her from harm, He positions her for victory, honor, and influence in ways that cannot be contested by human opposition. Endurance through trials is a powerful indicator that a woman is under the protection of God. Life is filled with tests, pressures, and moments of difficulty, and evil people often seek to use these challenges to weaken, discourage, or derail her. Yet a woman who is protected by God does not succumb to despair or give in to frustration. Instead, she demonstrates a remarkable capacity to endure, to remain steadfast, and to navigate life's storms with faith and perseverance. Endurance is not merely the ability to survive difficulties, it is the ability to maintain integrity, hope, and purpose in the face of adversity. It is a sign that her life is under divine supervision, and that God's strength sustains her through every trial. When evil people attempt to create confusion, chaos, or harm, she faces these situations with patience and discernment. She may encounter betrayal from friends, manipulation from colleagues, or opposition from those who wish her harm, but her spirit remains anchored in God's promises. She understands that trials are temporary and that they do not have the final word. While others may falter or retreat, she continues to press forward, trusting that God's hand is guiding her and that every obstacle is part of a larger plan to refine her character and prepare her for greater purpose. Her endurance demonstrates a faith that is unwavering, a spirit that refuses to yield, and a trust in God that cannot be shaken. Endurance through trials also shapes her character. Each challenge she faces becomes an opportunity to grow in wisdom, patience, and resilience. She learns to navigate difficult relationships, to manage unexpected setbacks, and to persevere when circumstances seem impossible. Rather than becoming bitter, resentful, or defeated, she allows trials to mold her into a stronger, more compassionate, and more spiritually mature person. Her ability to endure transforms her life into a living testimony that God's protection is active, that His purposes are unfolding, and that no trial can overcome His plan for her. Evil people often try to capitalize on moments of weakness, believing that pressure will cause her to falter. They may attempt to discourage her through harsh words, deceptive tactics, or subtle sabotage, hoping that she will lose faith or give up on her calling. Yet endurance ensures that these tactics fail. A woman under God's protection does not react impulsively or in fear. She responds with patience, prayer, and strategic action, allowing God to handle the outcome. Her endurance becomes a spiritual shield, protecting her from the harmful effects of opposition and ensuring that she remains on the path God has set before her. One of the key aspects of endurance is perspective. She understands that trials are not random or meaningless. They are tools in God's hands to prepare her for greater victories. This perspective allows her to face hardships with hope and confidence rather than despair. She recognizes that temporary setbacks do not define her future and that God's plan for her life is greater than the schemes of those who oppose her. By maintaining this perspective, she is able to endure challenges without losing sight of her purpose, and she emerges from trials stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the next season. Endurance also enables her to maintain faith when circumstances seem overwhelming. Faith is often tested in difficult moments, and evil people may attempt to exploit doubt or fear. However, a woman under God's protection leans into her faith, trusting in His promises, seeking His guidance, and relying on His strength rather than her own. Her ability to endure is rooted in this trust. She does not allow temporary difficulties to dictate her decisions or cloud her vision. Instead, she moves forward with confidence, knowing that God is with her and that His protection is sufficient to see her through every challenge. The process of enduring trials also provides her with a measure of supernatural resilience. She develops the capacity to withstand repeated pressures without breaking, to navigate ongoing opposition without losing hope, and to maintain integrity even when tested. Each trial she overcomes strengthens her ability to face future challenges with courage and determination. She becomes a beacon of strength and hope to others, demonstrating that endurance is not passive, it is an active, deliberate reliance on God that produces lasting results. Endurance through trials also demonstrates the alignment of her life with God's will. A woman who can persist through difficulties without compromise shows that she is walking in obedience and faithfulness. Her ability to endure challenges without succumbing to anger, bitterness, or fear is evidence that God is guiding her steps and providing the strength needed to remain steadfast. This endurance distinguishes her from those who rely solely on their own strength, revealing that divine protection is at work in her life. Ultimately, endurance through trials is a sign of both protection and preparation. It ensures that she remains unshaken by the attacks of evil people, that she continues to advance toward her God-given purpose, and that she grows in character, wisdom, and spiritual strength. Her life becomes a testimony that trials are not obstacles to divine protection, but opportunities for it to manifest. Every difficulty she faces is met with a steadfast spirit, a heart anchored in faith, and a reliance on God that cannot be undermined. This endurance is a living proof that when God protects a woman, He sustains her through every trial, equips her to persevere, and ensures that she emerges victorious, stronger, and ready for the fullness of His plan. Joy that cannot be stolen is a profound sign that a woman is protected by God. It is a joy that transcends circumstances, surpasses understanding, and refuses to be shaken by the schemes of evil people. While adversaries may attempt to bring her down through manipulation, betrayal, or hardship, her spirit remains vibrant, her heart remains light, and her confidence remains anchored in God. This joy is not dependent on favorable circumstances or the absence of challenges. It is rooted deeply in her relationship with the Almighty. She has discovered that true joy comes from knowing she is loved, chosen, and protected by God, and no external force can strip that away. Evil people often try to rob others of happiness and peace. They use words of criticism, actions of deceit, and plans of sabotage to create frustration, anxiety, and despair. Yet a woman under God's protection responds differently. While she acknowledges challenges, she refuses to dwell in negativity or allow fear and anger to take root. Her joy serves as both a shield and a weapon. It shields her from being overwhelmed by adversity and confounds those who would seek to harm her. They cannot understand why their attacks fail to break her spirit or dampen her enthusiasm for life, and this very incomprehensibility is evidence of divine protection at work. This joy is steadfast because it originates from an unchanging source. She does not rely on temporary pleasures, approval from others, or material success to define her happiness. Instead, she anchors her joy in the promises of God, in His faithfulness, and in His presence in her life. When adversity arises, she recalls that her God is greater than any challenge, stronger than any adversary, and more capable than any obstacle. This perspective allows her to maintain a heart of gratitude, to celebrate small victories, and to keep hope alive even in difficult seasons. Her joy is an expression of trust, demonstrating that she believes God is orchestrating her life for good, regardless of the temporary setbacks orchestrated by others. Her joy also serves as a testimony to those around her. In moments of conflict, people notice that she remains composed, optimistic, and gracious. They are drawn to her, inspired by her resilience, and uplifted by her perspective. Her joy becomes contagious, influencing her environment and creating a positive impact in her sphere of influence. Evil people may attempt to diminish her reputation, sow discord, or isolate her, but her joy transforms these attacks into opportunities for God's glory to be revealed. The very presence of her joy exposes their schemes and diminishes the power of their plans. Moreover, joy that cannot be stolen reflects her spiritual maturity. She has learned to separate her emotional well-being from the unpredictable actions of others. She understands that people may fail, circumstances may shift, and life may challenge her, but none of these factors can undermine the divine protection that surrounds her. This understanding allows her to navigate life with grace, patience, and confidence. Her joy is not superficial or fleeting. It is a profound expression of her inner security in God. It is a joy that cannot be replicated by human effort and cannot be disrupted by human malice. This joy also equips her to face trials with courage. When evil people attempt to create fear, confusion, or doubt, her joy gives her the strength to respond with wisdom rather than panic. It empowers her to make decisions with clarity, to approach challenges with confidence, and to act with integrity. Joy becomes a stabilizing force, preventing her from reacting impulsively or succumbing to the manipulations of others. It allows her to remain steadfast in her purpose, demonstrating that divine protection is not passive, but actively influences her emotions, responses, and actions. In addition, her joy deepens her relationship with God. It fosters gratitude, worship, and faith, creating a feedback loop where the awareness of His protection increases her joy, and her joy strengthens her reliance on Him. In times of solitude, prayer, or reflection, she experiences a peace and contentment that others cannot easily disrupt. This joy nourishes her spirit, reinforces her resilience, and fortifies her against spiritual, emotional, and physical attacks. It becomes a defining characteristic of her life, marking her as someone under the direct care and protection of God. Joy also serves as a subtle but powerful barrier against the attacks of evil people. While they may attempt to provoke fear, anger, or bitterness, her joy remains untouchable. It confounds their efforts, frustrates their plans, and diminishes the influence they hope to exert. Because her joy is rooted in divine protection rather than circumstances, it cannot be undermined by threats, lies, or manipulations. It is both a shield and a declaration that she is secure in God's love. And no opposition can alter that reality. Ultimately, joy that cannot be stolen is the mark of a woman whose life is under divine protection. It reflects a heart anchored in faith, a spirit fortified by God, and a perspective aligned with His promises. It demonstrates resilience in adversity, wisdom in decision-making, influence over her environment, and unwavering trust in her Creator. Her joy is living proof that protection is not only about defense, it is about maintaining inner strength, thriving in spite of opposition, and walking confidently in the path God has designed for her. It is a joy that shines brightly, defies the intentions of evil, and testifies to the world that when God protects a woman, she is unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. When we take a step back and look at the life of a woman under the protection of God, a remarkable picture emerges, one that is filled with peace, discernment, favor, strength, elevation, endurance, and joy. Each of these qualities is not merely a trait or a coincidence. They are living evidence of divine protection and guidance. They are signs that God Himself has set a hedge of security around her, that He is actively involved in every aspect of her life, and that the schemes of evil people cannot touch her. This protection does not mean that life will be free from challenges or attacks, but it does mean that no weapon formed against her shall prosper, and every challenge is an opportunity for God to reveal His power through her life. The first sign, peace in the middle of chaos, illustrates that her inner life is anchored in God. Evil people may attempt to create confusion, incite fear, or manipulate circumstances, but her spirit remains steady because it is rooted in divine peace. This peace is not superficial. It is a deep, abiding calm that enables her to navigate turmoil with clarity and wisdom. While the world around her may be in disarray, she walks unshaken, demonstrating that God's protection is not passive. It is active, steadying, and sustaining. The peace she carries is both her defense and her testimony, revealing to all who observe her that her life is under divine care. The second sign, discernment, reflects the supernatural insight that God grants her to navigate a world filled with deception and hidden agendas. Evil people may present themselves with smiles and flattering words, hoping to manipulate or exploit, but her discernment allows her to see beyond appearances. She is able to recognize motives, anticipate actions, and make decisions that preserve her integrity and protect her purpose. This gift of spiritual insight is evidence that God equips her to navigate challenges with wisdom, ensuring that she is not ensnared by schemes designed to derail her. Her discernment keeps her safe, it sharpens her judgment, and it positions her to respond in alignment with God's will. Favor that cannot be explained is another unmistakable sign of God's protection. Favor lifts her above obstacles, opens doors that no human can open, and ensures that her life progresses in ways that defy logic and expectation. Even when adversaries attempt to block her path, divine favor moves before her, arranging circumstances, people, and opportunities in alignment with God's purpose. Favor demonstrates that protection is not merely defensive, it is also promotive. It elevates her influence, provides her with resources, and positions her for success. The very presence of favor signals to the world and to those who oppose her that her life is guided and guarded by God Himself. Strength in weakness is a further demonstration of divine protection. Life's challenges may press her to the limits of her natural abilities, but in these moments of apparent weakness, God's strength manifests through her. She may feel pressure, fear, or vulnerability, yet she rises above it, exhibiting resilience and power that can only come from the Almighty. Strength in weakness turns every trial into a platform for divine display, every challenge into an opportunity for growth, and every obstacle into evidence of God's sustaining power. Evil people may attempt to exploit her limitations, but they fail to recognize that her true strength originates in God and not in herself. Elevation above her enemies is yet another testament to God's protection. While adversaries may attempt to hinder her progress, God positions her in places of influence, authority, and opportunity that cannot be touched by human schemes. This divine elevation allows her to advance in her purpose, achieve victories, and exert influence in ways that confound those who oppose her. It is both protective and strategic, ensuring that her path is secure, her progress is unhindered, and her calling is fulfilled. Elevation is a powerful reminder that God does not simply shield her from harm. He positions her to thrive, grow, and impact the world around her. Endurance through trials is also a hallmark of God's protective hand. Life's pressures, betrayals, and hardships are inevitable, yet she perseveres. She faces challenges with patience, faith, and resilience, knowing that each trial is an opportunity for growth and refinement. Endurance allows her to maintain integrity, trust God's process, and continue advancing even when circumstances seem bleak. It is through endurance that she demonstrates the depth of her faith, the power of God at work in her life, and the futility of the enemy's schemes. Finally, joy that cannot be stolen reflects the inner strength, faith, and divine alignment of a woman under God's protection. This joy is not dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in the knowledge of God's love, presence, and sovereignty. Evil people may attempt to bring despair, frustration, or fear, but her joy remains untouchable. It sustains her, empowers her, and acts as a testimony to all who witness it. Her joy confirms that she is not ruled by the world's challenges, but guided and protected by the Almighty. When these 7 signs, peace, discernment, favor, strength, elevation, endurance, and joy come together, they form a complete picture of divine protection. They reveal that God's hand is upon her life, guarding her from harm, guiding her steps, and ensuring that she fulfills her destiny. They demonstrate that protection is not passive, it is active, transformative, and multifaceted. Each sign reinforces the others, creating a spiritual armor that makes her resilient, influential, and unstoppable. A woman under God's protection is not defined by her adversaries, circumstances, or limitations. She is defined by the one who guards her, equips her, and positions her for victory. Evil people may plot, circumstances may challenge, and life may test, but she remains steadfast, secure, and victorious. Her life becomes a living testimony that God protects those he loves, elevates those he chooses, and empowers those who trust in him. Her peace, discernment, favor, strength, elevation, endurance, and joy collectively illustrate a life guided by divine purpose, shielded from harm, and destined for impact. When we observe her journey, we see not only a survivor but a conqueror, not only a protected individual, but a shining example of God's faithfulness. She demonstrates to the world that when God's hand is upon a woman, evil cannot prevail, obstacles cannot hold her back, and her life will bear fruit that reflects divine favor. Every challenge she faces becomes a testimony, every victory a declaration, and every step an example of what it means to live under the protection of Almighty God. Her life is a testament, a beacon, and an inspiration that shows the undeniable power, wisdom, and love of the one who guards his daughters.